new study from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute found that despite the damage the coronavirus lockdowns did to the world's economy, global military spending rose to over $2 trillion in 2021, an all-time high. The US accounted for 38% of the world military spending as it focuses on next-generation technologies, modernizing its nuclear arsenal, and large-scale arms procurement. The US, China, India, Russia and the UK all increased their military spending, accounting for 62% of global military expenditure. Despite global poverty, global debt and a cost of living crisis, the global defense industry is not seeing a downturn. Russia announced on April 27 that it has cut off natural gas supplies to Bulgaria and Poland after refusing to comply with Moscow's demand to pay for natural gas in rubles. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that all countries that were on Kremlin's list of unfriendly countries would need to pay for natural gas using the Russian rubles or their supplies would be cut off. The cut-offs put pressure on Russia's remaining European clients to pay in rubles, or they also face the risk of sharing the same fate as Poland and Bulgaria, as the dispute between Europe and Russia over natural gas payments escalates. Despite EU efforts to diversify its energy supplies, Russia is sending a strong message to her that its natural gas shipments could be disrupted if sanctions escalate. Any broad natural gas supply cutoff for the EU will likely to send the region into recession. A series of explosions were reported in several Russian provinces bordering Ukraine this week as the war escalates into Russia. Ukraine reportedly launched strikes on 2 oil depots in Russian city of Bryansk, which is about 70 miles from Ukraine's border, while blasts were also reported in the provinces of Kursk and Voronezh inside the Russian territory. The Ukrainians are believed to have used Turkish-made TB2 Bayraktar drones in these attacks. Russia has struggled in its 2-month war in Ukraine, and with the war moving into mainland Russia, this is an ominous sign of things to come. The Central African Republic has approved Bitcoin as a legal tender, just the second country to do so. Lawmakers voted unanimously to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender in what is one of the world's poorest countries but is rich in diamonds, gold and uranium. The Latin American nation El Salvador was the first nation to adopt Bitcoin back in September 2021, but very quickly the adoption of the cryptocurrency turned into failure. Usage and understanding was low and would-be users were met with several technological problems such as the scarcity of Bitcoin ATMs. Crypto requires fairly sophisticated infrastructure, but the infrastructure in the Central African Republic is very poor, with only 15% of the population having access to electricity and only 5% of the population having access to the internet. The country currently uses the French-backed CFA franc as its currency, along with most other former French colonies in Africa, and the adoption of Bitcoin is possibly an attempt to undermine the CFA. Egypt has imposed tight restrictions on congregational prayers in the holy month of Ramadan and Eid, citing COVID-19 rules, triggering widespread anger. The restrictions include limiting night prayers to 30 minutes and banning spiritual retreats commonly held overnight at mosques during the last 10 days of Ramadan. The regime also announced bans on Eid prayers in open spaces and will only allow them to be held in a select number of mosques with imams approved by the government and a single state-sanctioned sermon. The Ministry of Religious Affairs announced the controversial decision, saying it was to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Health officials, however, have said the pandemic is in significant decline in Egypt and no distancing restrictions are imposed on other social activities. Many have attributed the decisions to the government's fear of large gatherings that could turn into protests as the country suffers an unprecedented economic crisis. The Egyptian government is paranoid of any gatherings, including religious ones, when many people gather together. With the economy nosediving and the regime of Sisi struggling to deliver, it's just a matter of when, not if, the people will take to the streets.